some history in old Greece. Prolegomena term was the summary of the topic at hand. And now we are having the expert who is going to talk about that, about the Prolegomena. Now, Cyberstrategie Est-Ouest, Yannisk Harrel. Prolegomena on the mineralogical challenge of the AI, the blind spot of an anthropological transition. You have the floor, Yannick, please.
Дорогие коллеги, дамы и господа.
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, hello. I would like to thank the organizers for invitation. I'm going to speak English.
In this introduction, large introduction, I will explain you why I was interested, especially about the mineralogical resources used for the artificial intelligence. That's a special point of view about artificial intelligence. We will see the main line of my demonstration. So we will have the definitions at the beginning. After, I will talk you about the silicon brain, NI. And later, I will speak about a special fact, actual fact, the twin transition. Later, I will explain why cyber is materialized. I will use something very important because that's a part of my doctoral thesis, the automobile 3.0. Don't worry, I will explain you what it is exactly, automobile 3.0. And I will show you the link between mineralogical and algorithmic powers. And at the end, we will see we are coming from metals to NI, and we are going from NI to metals. And I will conclude with some words about the anthropological aspect of the NI. So, I have published many works, many articles, and I have participated in many books. And I have written especially 3 books. The main one is in the middle, Automobile 3.0, because at one moment I wanted to know what it is upstream about NI in the automobile 3.0. I will explain you that Internet of Things. And that's why I decided to do a doctoral thesis in engineering to demonstrate the importance, the criticity of mineralogical resources. So, from the beginning, some definitions. The first one is the main domain of NI, I mean cyberspace. This is the commonly used definition, all information, communications, and control systems, civil and military, as well as data passing through them. Cybernetics, the main word, is the science of information, communication, and control system between live beings and machines. Remember Norbert Wiener. Cyberstrategy is the heart, not the science, the heart of governing through effective action plans within information, communication, and control system. About NI, you have heard, I think so, many definitions, but they are, I believe, very similar. Use of protocols, models, and programs to answer to an information request from a human operator and/or another artificial intelligence. And this special aspect, I won't have the time to develop more during this presentation, but very essential, that anthropological transition, because, especially with generative NI, that's, according to me, a step towards human evolution caused artificially and not biologically. So, if we speak about the silicon brain. We begin with something very evident. Cyberspace is a complex strategic ecosystem. There is 4 strategic ecosystems: land, sea, space, and air. And the fifth one, is a cyber ecosystem, and it is very specifically because of its transversality. I will explain you. But before, we must be aware the content, I mean the information, which is the valorization of the data, should not make forget the importance of the container, the pipe. From processing, in this case, the NI, to distribution networks and diffusion, IT networks, IT terminals especially, and very, very dependent on the material. I will demonstrate just later. But once again, cyberspace is very transversal to matter, dematerialized and materialized, from virtuality to reality to virtuality, and there is nowadays an hybridizations through augmented reality. So, as you can see, it's very, very complex, and the transversality is a main point of this ecosystem. We have deep change. I won't develop more because you have many presentations here in this conference, this journey. But we can't understand there is a new generation of artificial intelligence, I mean the generative one. New because the first one we can tell it has begun with in 1956 with the Dartmouth Conference and workshop in the United States with John McCarthy. And in Soviet Union, it was the publications of digital electronic machines from the pioneer of cybernetics, Engineer Colonel Anatoly Ivanovich Kitov. So at the same time, it was the beginning, and now we are a new generation. About this transversality, we tend to AGI, there's just a mistake, from artificial narrow intelligence to artificial general intelligence to artificial super intelligence. That's the main goal. But more compatibilities means more needs. What I want to say by more needs, that means more powerful algorithm, of course, with developers, more processors, more data, more servers, more energy, and especially in the upstream, what I was the most interested in, more raw materials. That's a constant from the copper age, from the Bronze Age, from the Iron Age. Humanity, at each progress, technologically, they use more and more raw materials. I will give you an example later. But when you have, at the beginning, for example, at the beginning of the humanity during the Copper Age, Bronze, and later iron, you have what? You have gold, silver, tin, lead, copper, iron, sometimes mercury, nickel. That was enough for all our human activities at the beginning. And I will show you the table. We use now almost all elements. So, when we speak about cyberspace, usually you have the semantic informational layer, which is the creation, distribution, modification, the use of data. For example, one of the most known examples are social networks, messengers. Another one, logical software layers with programs, operating system, database controllers. But for me, it was interesting to study physical hardware layer. I mean cable routers, servers, satellites, and many more. And upstream, more upstream, we will see all these elements in the physical hardware layers need as special needs, strategic needs. Okay. I will speak about the twin transition, because that's a new phenomena. We can't start in 1992 with the Rio de Janeiro summit in Brazil. And it was because it was the first international agreement to the fight against climate change. And it was strengthened by the Paris Agreement of 2015. So to remember, the aim is to achieve zero net GHG, greenhouse gas emission, by the horizon 2050. Two mean and encouraged, of course, and later imposed by normative means. Through the digital transition and through the ecological transition. And please, that's energy transition. We call it ecological, but in fact, that's energy transition. And I will tell you why it is very important. The two transition, which are tied, really tied, that's twin transition, that's the metallizations. That's the crucible, the main crucible. And the third sector, that's not only this sector, but the main sector, of course, energy, communication, and mobility. And this graphic is to show you, if you speak about digital transition or energy transition, it will be metallizations. For example, the example, and I know the best, is in European Union, you have many, many official documents about this. That's one of them, toward a green and digital future. And you twin transition in plural, but sometimes you can find in singular here. So you have two European Green Deal, which was published in 2020 years. But the last one is Critical Raw Materials Act, which was published in March 2023. But you can find many occurrences about this twin transition, and I insist about this. So, what we call about twin transitions. Here we are, for digital to energy transition. In digital, we have cloud computing, fog computing, edge computing, artificial intelligence, of course, and WiMAX and all means of telecommunication for 4G plus to 5G plus and 6G. In energy transition, we have all these elements. Sometimes you have the term renewable energies, but you can find the two in the same times, clean energy. And in clean energy, you have solar energy, photovoltaics usually, but also thermal collector. Wind energy, we know from the windmill. Geothermal energy, very used in some countries, for example in Scandinavia. Hydro energy, dammed water of course, but more and more tidal power. Bioenergy, with the biomass, and what is biomass? It's the use of agricultural residue, organic waste, and especially water. and biofuel of second and third generation, and of course, nuclear energy. This picture is coming from the International Energy Agency, and it shows very clearly you need, for example, from fossil fuel, we know, coal, here, natural gas, all the metals by kilogram for megawatt. And as you see, you need more metals for clean energies. Nuclear, solar, onshore, and offshore wind. And electric car, I show you because I will explain you about automobile 3.0, but you have an ordinary classical conventional car, as I say, here, and electric car, all these elements. I will give you all the elements. And at this point, I have to tell you that's not because a raw material, mineralogical resources is abundant. It isn't strategic. The best example I can give you, that's copper. Copper, we know it from, it was since the Copper Age. Very, very pleasant for us in the electrical networks from the beginning, but electronic and communication component especially. And as you can see over there, the consumption is in there is many age. At the beginning, it was, for example, here, the first age, it was the democratization of electrifications over the world. Later, it was electronics, more and more electronics, the electronization. And in the last decade, it was the digital age. So as you see, copper is massively used during the digital era. And you have, that's just for information, but the price since 1960, and we don't think, as experts, it won't fall again. The price will be very high. So this resource very important for the twin transition. I mean, ecological energy and digital. Copper is a very strategic one, and whatever, it is very abundant for the moment. So, I have told you, this the periodic tables of elements, sometimes called the Mendeleev table, you have many metals. From here, so lithium, to here, rare earth element. And these metalloids, this is a gray zone. We don't know if they are metals or not, but that's not important because we use the other metalloids. Remember this table of elements. It's very important because nowadays, in the digital era, we use almost all these elements. So, what I mean, to be more factual, solar panels we use, for example, that's not an exhaustive example. There are many elements. I give you very, not the most important, but very significant elements. Solar panels, indium, cadmium, wind turbine, you have, that's an alloy, but mainly that's iron with steel, aluminium for wind turbines, nuclear reactor, uranium, samarium, biomass, of course, I've told you that's organic waste or that's wood, agricultural residue, but you have plants to transform it for the methanization. So it's used still, once again, I mean iron, nickel for the chips. And what we are interested today, silicon and germanium, data storage, very important for the server, dysprosium, platinum, IT networks, copper, once again, iron, BEV, that's for electromobiles, I mean battery, lithium, cobalt, and motors, aluminium, a rare earth element, once again, dysprosium, neodymium. So when I am telling you, cyber is materialized. For example, we can use, that's not an exhaustive list, of course, this time, but all these elements are used in the cyber nowadays. But to tell you more, to put forward, for what? This is used for chip, I mean CPU, GPU. For data storage, as already said, circuit board, and wire, I mean connection. These are the main elements used for all these elements necessary to produce artificial intelligence. And never forget the basis of our civilization in linking to the use of energy and to cyber production, to distribution, to connection. And yes, electrons, cloud of electrons is an elementary particle with protons and neutrons, but never forget that the basis of electronics, electronics, remember it. So, I have told you, I will explain you what I mean by automobile 3.0. That's three things: electric powered, autonomous, and connected. And we can summarize it by what is an electromobile nowadays. That's a computer on wheels, driven by AI, NI. And I have chosen this example for my doctoral thesis because that's the confluence of the two transition, digital and energy transition. As you can see, you have fossil fuel to electricity from clean energy. You have yet you have mechanical parts, but more and more you have electronic parts and digital parts, more and more. And you have two fuel for an automobile 3.0, energy and data. And at each time, for electric charge, for electromobile itself, you need raw materials. But electric charge, you need raw materials. Data, you need raw materials. So in the upstream, we are coming from raw materials. We can tell electromobility is a permanent communication between man and machine, which is driven by AI, what we call the intelligent transport system. We have in our modern cities, for example, to avoid a traffic jam, we have a traffic light which is guided by artificial intelligence. So that's intelligent transport system. And our automobiles, that's an example with this wind speed exemplar, we can control them, we can call them with our devices, electronic devices. I will give you this layer for information, but when I speak about the permanent communication between man and machine, and the NI is between them, that's electronic components and the vehicle inside. And the second layer, electric component with the driver, of course, and outside vehicle and road environment, and vehicle and cyberspace. Remember, cyberspace is a strategic ecosystem whose NI is one component. And especially NI in automobile 3.0, that's used for navigation, infotainment, safety, security awareness diagnostic, and management system. Alors, BMS, battery management system. And NI is very important about this. There will be more, because to control the vehicle, all these elements. So that's, yes, that's a very light example, but you have your vehicle, automobile 3.0, which communicate with V2 everything, servers mainly, but other vehicle, V2V, and infrastructure, V2I, devices, of course, as I've show you, and V2 grid. And by grid energy, I mean smart grid, so driven by AI, once again. So, these are all elements used in automobile 3.0. Of course, you have a bodywork like classical internet, classical internal combustion engine, and so the bodywork I'll let you to read. But the brake, the PV, plug-in electric vehicle. For the battery, of course, you can find very known raw materials, especially cobalt. But electronic digital, you have all this one: tantalum, yttrium, indium, silicon, germanium, ruthenium, copper, and that's not all. That's just a small part. As you see, Ni is not just dematerialized. It needs more and more raw materials. That's not a matter of quantity, but you need them. However, that's just to give you an example. Copper in a classical car, internal combustion engine, as I've told you just before, that's 20-25 kilogram copper. But PHEV, that's 60. And more BEV, it will be more and more, 80 to 90. In the future, it will be even more. To lithium, Automobile 3.0 is a part of the intelligent transport system, or will be in a certain part. Within the smart cities, with smart grids, which use smart data. And it's a huge part of Internet of Things. You can see, for example, you have Industry 4.0. You can buy, for example, a car and have all the options, and you won't waste the time because the production will begin very shortly after, thanks to Industry 4.0. So, to explain you more, no energy, no development, no power. That's the basic requirements of modern power. You need, of course, energy which is accessible, steady quantity, and at a low cost. So we are coming from combustible fuel, and we are going to metallic mineralogical resources, renewable and nuclear energy. I'll give you some example, because more complex is a society, the more its energy need grows. Of course, I give you big data, cloud computing, industry 4.0, and AI, of course. Data center in the EU. If you are a production of 92 terawatt hour within 3 years, it will be, if you consider the production of Germany will be almost the same, 18%. That means all the data centers and energy for all data centers in the European Union will consume 18% of the annual production, energy annual production of Germany. And so we can consider a developing country adjust its production to the consumption need, and country in process of declining adjust the consumption needs to its production. Very important I insist about this, and there is a mirror effect about this mineralogical and other, because you need especially an intellectual formation, education, research development, engineering, financial, direct and indirect investment and shareholding, logistical flow upstream and upstream, and in the cybernetic system, you have exactly the same needs: intellectual, financial, and logistical. So, to tell you very quickly, is it possible an algorithmic power? Algorithmic power is not obligatory a state. It could be a private company, such as Tesla. Yes, it could be not a mineralogical power. It means just they resell only manufactured goods. But that's at the cost if supply security, and there is a large amount of levels from 0 to 100%, and many strategies. I give you them like this. That's just some example. If mineralogical resources are tied to cyberspace ecosystem, mineralogical power does not necessarily lead to algorithmic power. It helps, but not necessary. I mean, you have all deposits, and you use workers and engineers to transform them, to refine them, and to produce chips with the help of workers and engineers. And later, from mineralogical resources, mineralogical powers, you have chips, you have semiconductors, and you need developers, computer engineering to create all elements of the cyberspace, and once again to create the NI, the silicon brain. For specialists, it's just in the mining system, but NI is very important. Surveying, mining, processing, manufacturing, distributing, upcycling. That's what is used for mineralogical power. I give you just an example for a power, how to consider this. For example, you have for iron, you can have a supply risk very low and economic vulnerability very low too. Platinum, the supply risk is very high and the economic vulnerability too. It depends on every country. That's just a sample, that's just not the truth for all countries. That's just an example. But you can use especially the Erfindal-Hirschman index. I give you this a model you can use that to calculate, very simplified, of course. It calculates the risk of supply disruption, for example, in the domain of cyberspace electronic components, with demand over supply multiplied by the probability of disruptive event of different natures, as you can read. So we are coming in the upstream from metals to Ni, and later to Ni, from Ni to metals. Why Ni can help about this? Because it can help to preview deposit more correctly. It's already used about this. To mine more efficiently, not to waste time, not to tell you about variograms, but NI helps about calculate, to compute about the quantity and the superficie of the metal, the deposit. And we can analyze samples faster and more precisely. Of course, safety for people, installations, and machines, but to improve processes and equipment. And it was 2 years ago here, you have had a presentation about how NI can help about to create new sustainable materials with less environmental impact. So this is some example. You have, for example, a project from United States, from the US Geological Survey with the critical mass project, which use NI to search and to find, of course, deposit, raw materials deposit. But you have a private company which is coming from the Silicon Valley. I remember, for example, Jeff Bezos was an investor, cobalt metals, and they are already prospecting in Denmark, especially Greenland, is Disco Bay, and the other country is, Zambia, Mingomba region, with the use of NI. They use huge data, geological data, to know where to find more precisely new deposit. And nowadays, in the mining sector, industry, in some planets, we can analyze in real time geochemistry, and you have a perfect example of automation with trucks and rails from the famous Rio Tinto company and the Gudardari mine. And especially you have a geostatistic which were initiated by the French mathematician Georges Materon with his variograms, and it was Professor Josif von Loesch which has explained me how artificial is used nowadays to improve the variograms. That means to avoid to waste time and money, especially to mine and to blast elements where you don't find deposit. So, to conclude, artificial intelligence is a real opportunity for human activity to progress through civilizational guidelines, because it depends on each country about its civilization, thought, and spirit. It's very important. That's why I call about anthropological transition. And once again, it's strengthened by its transversal role, because that's a back and forth of human activity, because that artificial cyberspace is very special from land, sea, air, espace, because that's an engineering nature. We have created our own ecosystem, the fifth one. But to exist, this cyberspace has, however, a physical connection that back to one of the first, one of the oldest humanity oldest activity, extraction and exploitation of mineralogical resources. And I will finish it and to say, even in the cyber, everything is matter. Thank you for your attention. Спасибо за ваше внимание.
Our deepest thanks to you for your outstanding presentation at our conference. Спасибо большое. Would you
So thank you very much.
participate in our Q&A session to address any vital questions? So, the first question is, how do you assess the role of anthropological transition in AI development in the next 10 years?
How I consider it? I consider it as a transition because, as I've told you just before, we have created a fifth strategic space. So we must control it with the NI, because we know with the new generation, we know how to do it, but we need civilizational guidelines. It's specific to each country. So when I speak about artificial intelligence, that's wrong. I must speak about artificial intelligences. That's more perfect. But I respect the theme, the theme of the conference. But when we speak, I don't have so the time. But anthropological, yes, it has already changed many activities of human activity. For example, what I know the best, the management. The management has already changed, and maybe we are going to augmented humanity. To face to artificial intelligence. And for example, an augmented manager. A manager can't compete with artificial intelligence now. That's just a path. I don't know, it will be the good one. It will be the good for each country, each society. That's a choice. To do in the next year. And nowadays, I think so. That's the interest of this conference.
Thank you. And the next question is following this theme. So, will the upcoming era of 2D materials such as graphene change the basis of using other materials?
I think the question is about synthetic raw materials.
2D materials, yes, I guess.
Yes, of course. And as I've told you, it's very important to create new sustainable raw materials. You can find artificially and not naturally. But at the beginning, but never forget, to obtain something artificially, you need matter. You need, however, mineralogical resources. So NI can create new formulas, of course, but you need as a basis, upstream, always, you need materials. Donc yes, NI is very important for the future. And when I say the few tools, that's the very next few tools, it's already used. For example, the graphene is very interesting. New raw materials. We can use about for example, we have used, I can't remember, but polymer, for example. Polymer is very interesting. And all these elements are interesting to create more quickly, and to have a variability, a long-term durability, sustainability. That's very important. But we are just at the beginning of using this element. But never forget, we have all used raw materials from the beginning to create alloy. For example, the Bronze Age was an alloy with copper. So the history is not finished. That's just a new transition. That's a transition, just like this. That's our duty to use it in the best way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Огромное спасибо.
Спасибо.